All right. What's up, everybody? My name's Matt Zimmerman. I'm the CEO of Beast Code, and this is our first ever LinkedIn Live event. Want to welcome everybody. Um, we'll give it a couple minutes as people are starting to trickle in. We'll just start off with some intros about ourselves. I'll do the Beast Code origin story to fill those few minutes. But then we're going to get into doing a Beast Core demo. We got a lot of familiar faces on the live today. But also a lot of new people that haven't seen the software. So we want to show you what we have. Then we're going to show off our plugin architecture. That's something we haven't done publicly yet. That allows our users to extend the Beast Core software and customize it. And at the beginning of the year, we announced that we're going to take Beast Core into a SaaS offering. So we want to show you guys the roadmap that we put together, talk about some of the new features that we've built over the last quarter, some of our partners and integrations that we put in place, and then we'll do a Q&A. And throughout the event, feel free to engage with us throughout the chat. We got a lot of our beasts online, so they'll answer them as we're going. And if we don't get to it, we'll call them out towards the end. So with that, we'll start with our introductions, starting with John Wargo.
Hi, my name is John Wargo. I'm the CTO, one of the founders of Beast Code. I've been here since the beginning, coming up on 10 years in June, so that'll be fun. Outside of work, I don't really do a whole lot outside of work, but last night I was solving some math proofs, and on Sunday I was working on my Foundry. So I just like to solve cool problems and do hard things.
Sounds like we have the same hobby, Wargo, if working.
Yep. It's always something.
Jake Ball.
Hey everyone, I'm Jake. I'm the partner manager here at Beast Code. So what I'm all about is making friends, making partners, collaborating together. So super excited everyone could join. Look forward to it.
And then over to John McCrae.
Hi everyone, John McCrae here, account manager for the Air Force and Space Force business development area for Beast Code. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. John, if you hit it to the next slide, I'll just start with a little bit of our origin story. And it's kind of cool because I was looking through the participants for this event, and there's a lot of people that have been with us, not just at Beast Code, but on the customer side and supported us over the last almost a decade coming up in June. So it's kind of like a joint origin story because you guys were a part of it as well. But when we started the company, there were 7 of us, and we had a pretty sweet fold-out table. But the first project that we were working on was with the U.S. Navy. They had a new ship that they were building. We were doing some design analysis specifically on like survivability. So that just involves like a lot of modeling and simulations of different kinds of events that that ship might encounter. In this case, there were well over 15,000 different events that have been modeled. So you can imagine like just the tremendous amount of data. And our job was to make sense of all of that. They're all different file formats, different types of data. We need to identify trends and be able to put it together in a meaningful way for people to make decisions off of. So what we did is we went to the shipbuilder and we got access to their CAD models, and they had traditional like technical documents, think like blueprints and tech manuals, spreadsheets, databases, all kinds of stuff. But we created a digital representation of that ship that had over 1.2 million different components modeled. And with all those different components, you could click on a valve, open and close it, and see what all the downstream effects were. And then click on that same specific component and be able to see all the authoritative data that made it up. So we were able to apply all those different events that we were looking at and aggregate them. And instead of like closing a valve, now you're looking at, hey, bunch of damage just happened. And these are downstream effects of that. Maybe it was electrical components that went out, and those have tertiary effects on different things that are going to go down as a result of that. So now we had this interactive representation of the ship where we could actually do design analysis, and the different trends or suggestions that were made, we could actually implement those in our digital model and rerun all those different events and see what the effects were. We evolved that into a training application. So we could use that same foundation, the same interactive representation of the ship so that sailors could walk around. They could familiarize themselves with it. And we were able to emulate different consoles, different screens, things that they would be operating in real life, but in this virtual environment. And then from there, just adding John back in, We could even simulate different maintenance activities that were happening. So something as easy as like, hey, we're going to pull apart this pump, or maybe it's some major type of maintenance activity. So now not only could we do the design analysis, but we could do the training too. And that bled over into like the sustainment activities. Because all the authoritative data was behind those digital models, the people that were turning on these systems for the first time or having to do maintenance could pull up the tech manuals and pull up the parts numbers and all the things that they needed on the day to day and actually operate all those procedures virtually before doing them in real life. And we tell that story because it becomes like the full thread of operations from I'm designing something and I want to be able to play with that design, see if there's any flaws in it and modify things to see what those effects are to now I have to actually train people to operate and maintain it to let's go do the real life scenarios. So through supporting that effort and many other efforts across the DoD, we built our own commercial product called BScore that we're going to show you guys today. So out of the box, it's focused on data aggregation. As an organization, we're all about data and being able to visualize it in meaningful ways. But really what makes it impactful is our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man strategy. Not just having the data, but integrating with other organizations and their technology to bring them together into like these badass digital environments where we can do so many cool things together with BScore at the center of it all. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jake Ball, and he's going to talk a little bit about BScore.
All right. Appreciate that, sir. So on the next slide, what we'll see is who is or what is BScore. So John, if you don't mind flipping to the next one, please.
Yeah, he might be frozen up. Give me a second. I will share it.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate that. That was an awkward transition. And
well, it wouldn't be a live event if we didn't have anything awkward, right?
fair.
Hey, welcome to the hybrid world.
Yeah, right. It's going to turn into a lunch and learn. So I'll just go over some of the high level talking points if that's all right. All right, there we go. So the first note of why BScore, right? Software is used in everything or for everything. And what we're seeing now today is that software silos are becoming just as common as data silos. So as we aggregate data, we overcome these proprietary formats by parsing through those data sets or databases, categorizing, classifying them, filtering them, and then ultimately correlating them all together and presenting them in many different forms to our end users. The next bullet point speaks to overwhelming amounts of data, which is all too common. So again, today's software generates an immense amount of data, high-speed data. To us, data is data is data. It's relative. So by meeting your data needs where they are currently at, and overall your organization where it is at, whether that's on a server or in the cloud or overall an air gap solution, we can help make sense of your data so that you can identify that the data you need or the data that you ultimately don't have. And then lastly, disconnected solutions as we talk about software silos. So what we do and what the BScore application does inherently and out of the box is overcome those silos by rapidly and cost effectively integrating with your tools across your organization or your tool suite. And we break down those barriers and present them via a single interface via BScore. Next, please. So your workforce spends the majority of their time hunting for information to make decisions. And that is all too common of a problem. Where is my data? How do I access my data? How do I make sense of my data? So all this to say, our overall capabilities and technology here at BScode revolve around presenting your data from any source agnostic, and a lightweight form factor and a best-in-class UI and UX via BScore.
All right. And just looking at the chat, Jake, you got people that were just watching your demo in the last hour coming to your second demo. I think
I'm
that's
sorry.
that's a first. Sorry.
Jake, you're kind of a big deal, apparently.
Yeah.
Celebrity status.
Give the people what they want, Jake. All right, John, it looks like you're having some problems with your network. Will you be good to do a B-Score demo, or you want one of us to jump in and run through it?
Let's go ahead and I'll try. If we run into another issue, then someone else can take over. But hopefully it behaves for me here in a moment. But
All
let
right.
me know. You can see my screen.
We got you.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to go walk through core with everyone. Really just mostly the out-of-the-box capability. If we have time, I might just showcase some of our training courseware as well. Time for the out-of-the-box. What we're looking at right now is the platform selector core, and so we have a spaceship called the USS Never Sleeps that we built for purpose. Click on a specific that in, and this really useful if I am, say, a responsible engineer. I own this subsystem. This is my area of response to customers. If it's
Hey, John, I'm going to stop you for a second. Are you guys having the same lagging issues I am? Hearing John?
I want
Yeah, he's very
load up
choppy.
All right.
everything.
Hey, John,
Of
you're
the system.
choppy, dude. So we're gonna swap over. I've got the demo, and I'll run through it if that's cool. All right. Cool. So being agile again. So this is B-Score. It's our commercial product, as I mentioned. It's all web based, running in Google Chrome. And the first thing that you see, this is our consent banner. You have anything that you want in here. Typically, we work with the DoD, so we have the typical DoD verbiage in here. So we'll go ahead and accept and get in. First thing you see here is search. Because a lot of our users are like senior level engineer, maintainer, analyst types, and they know what they're looking for. So they can put in the part number, the document number, and immediately pull that up. But if you're like me, like the younger generation, you probably don't have those things memorized. So we have what we call our system viewer. And from here, I can choose all the different mechanical and electrical systems that I want to render. And you can drop this down. In this case, we have one, the USS Never Sleeps. It's a spaceship that we built to show off these types of demos. But you could have any number. You could have a whole fleet of ships. You could have a whole bunch of tail numbers for aircraft or facilities, and easily swap between each of those and see the geometry and the data and documents that are associated with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and load this in. And right now, this is part of the magic. It's loading in all of the CAD models. So anyone that's worked with CAD before, you know they're huge files. They're super clunky. And so, I mean, it can take minutes, hours, days to freaking load CAD models based on what you're looking at. So we have a process with our products that will take them and convert them into a lightweight format and be able to render these things in seconds. We recently worked on a project. It was an Army vehicle. And the CAD model to load, just in like a traditional kind of like CAD package, was taking 9 hours, unlike a gaming desktop. So it was, it wasn't like an old device or anything like that. We took a look at it, and within a couple of days, we had all the data aggregated, and we were able to load that same model and all the relationships of data in 12 seconds. And we've seen that time and time again with different platforms that we're working with. When I'm in here, I use game-based controls to fly around WASD. We'll show you some cool things that we're doing with mobile in a little bit. But once you're in here, you can click on any components and pull up information about it. So this is going back to like our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man kind of strategy. Integrations with products like PLM. Think of like a Siemens Team Center, a PTC Windchill, where all of this information already exists and is configuration managed. So we can tie directly into those. And so this information can be updated in real time. And it's all customizable as well. Additionally, like going back to search, basically it's like a query builder. And we have some enhancements to this that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But I can say, I'm looking at this hull number, this tail number, this facility. I want to find parts where my display label contains P&P per pump. And now I can get a list of all the different pumps that are on my platform. I can see more information about it. So the top here is the same kind of data that you were looking at before. Again, could be pulled from a PLM environment or another data repository. Also getting a bill of materials. So not everything has to be stored like in a 3D model. It could just be a component with a relationship with data tagged to it. And then, of course, any types of documents, manuals, diagrams are all here as well. And then the cool part, of course, is being able to see where those things are all physically laid out. So clicking to it and being able to zoom directly to it. We recently did a project with a warehouse. We did a point cloud scan of the entire facility that took a couple days to do. We worked with another company to do the point cloud scan, so friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. They processed the information, sent it back to us, and then we created a digital model from it. That took us about 4 weeks to do. But just thinking about this like zoom to kind of capability, you could type in a part number, or just I'm looking for the example, there's all kinds of like hydraulics and oil kind of components and liquids. You can just type that in and see exactly what shelf, what box those things are located in. So that use case there, I can only imagine like how much time is spent just locating stuff. And we do work, the US Navy is our biggest customer. So thinking about like their ships, like how many freaking valves are on a ship? And so being able to be able to type in the name of one and zoom right to it, that just saves a ton of time. And all of this is just like basic access to data. We also have our flow model in here. So if I change our visualizer to what we call static flow, this is the alignment of the platform. So everything that's blue is on and operational, getting its support services. Everything that's yellow is off or closed. And so we got a whole bunch of closed valves in here. And then the white color in between indicates that there's no flow. And this is all, every one of the components knows how they're interconnected. They all have some basic rules built into them. So I can click on any of the components in here, change the state. So we'll close this valve, and you can immediately see what are all the downstream effects of doing that. So you can imagine, just like in any type of maintenance procedure, having to isolate liquids go into it, isolate electricity. So what valves do I need to close? What breakers do I need to flip? Being able to do all those things in this virtual environment before you go do it in real life, or building in the logic to help you make those decisions. Another big piece of it is just the references to technical documentation. So again, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. We can keep saying that over and over again, because one of the big things at the end, Jake's going to talk about partnerships and how we want to work with you guys to build things that are even bigger. There's a company we work with, Red Shred, and they got this badass algorithm that can take in all kinds of documents, OCR it, and start structuring all the information. So we can run all these documents through that platform, make them searchable, and then we can go through in our database of all these like part numbers and descriptions and things and start relating them together. So there is no manual process to link these 4 documents to this valve here. That's all done with automation. And then the cool thing you get is when you open the document, you get these hyperlinks. So a lot of these are kind of they're functional representations, not like a physical layout. Like this isn't how these components are physically laid out within our spaceship. It's just showing you how they work together. So I can click on any of these now, and I can trace it back to see where it's physically located. I'll pull up the same diagram in here. We have what we call our avatar mode. That's our first person perspective. So I can click on pump number 2 in here, jump to it in avatar, and I'll actually be inside the spaceship in one of the mechanical rooms. And so most of the time, like now I got like pretty textures and stuff on things. This is where we start getting into a lot of like manual kind of work. A lot of the digital environments that we have today, they were all created with some type of script or integration where we can continuously update them. But when we start getting into things like training, and we're not going to show it today because we have an entire suite of tools that's drag and drop to be able to create interactive scenarios and courseware. That's when you want the textures and stuff like that. So a lot of times we'll go in, we'll take the CAD models, we'll make them in a lightweight format like we were showing before, and then we'll start applying textures to make it better. But like the avatar perspective, like the big use case here is just communication. It looks cool, but being able to be like I'll go with the maintenance use case. I'm a senior level maintainer. I'm in the space. I got a bunch of junior level maintainers that I'm working with. I can actually walk them to the component that we're going to work on. I can show them where we're going to get the tools. Maybe we got to rip this pump out today. I can show them the path that we're going to take to pull this thing out of the ship. Or maybe it's like an aircraft that we're working on. Like I can show you the exact piece of the airframe that you need to pull off and what's behind it. Just walk you through the whole thing. It's all about communication. But the cool thing is these are all just interrelated with each other. So I can easily swap between being in a first person perspective, seeing all the different systems, pulling up information, and have my entire library of documentation and being able to search across all of those things. And that's our basic BScore demo. This was version 5 of our software. Over the last couple of years, it's been a long time. We've been working on version 6 of BScore. And so we've broken it up into a bunch of plugins. And so now all the parts and pieces are like Lego blocks that you can bring together. So I'm going to turn it over to John Wargo, and we're going to let him give you guys a demonstration of the plugin architecture and how easy it is for somebody to build an extension and deploy that.
Yeah, let me pull my screen up real quick. So I've been trying to come up with the best way to like convey the vision for BScore and how plugins work and all of that. And I kind of just wanted to take you guys on the story of how this kind of came to be and the development process behind it. The goal when we were writing the new version of BScore, version 6, was to make everything modular and specifically make it composable. So we had a lot of problems in the past where we'd go to a customer with a problem statement and we would solve it for them. And then another customer would say, oh, we want that and this, but like together. And in the previous versions of the software, we all would like customize the software, and then merging those customizations was very manual, very labor intensive problem. And so in the new version of the software, we basically have these separation of concerns. We have a plugin that solves one problem, and you can just put them next to each other and get the sum total of all of them, which is really cool. And then on top of that, because they're all separate pieces now, it makes upgrading the software really easy and straightforward. So I'm going to start you guys off with a really quick demo of a 3D printing plugin that I wrote pretty early on. This is like a version of BScore that I think is 6 or 7 months old because that's the version we were using at the time. And I'll show you how that evolved into the latest version of BScore that we have now. And I think it tells a good story. So I'm going to pull in the cryogenic cooling system. And we're just going to have this one system with the never sleeps again. And the customer basically had a 3D printing lab, and they wanted an easier way to integrate with their 3D printers. So right off the bat, I can come to Chillwater Valve 12, and I have a lot of the same PLM style information. I can come over to documents, and we have the documents as Z showed earlier. But now I have this tech work packages module. And this is really cool because this is actually a separate web app that's running on a different server, and you just give BScore a link to it, and it shows up in the right place. So now I can come through here and say, oh, this is the wrench that I need to do work on the valve. And I can click print. Then I can come over to fabricators and it should show up as printing. And I can hit job details and I can see that it's the wrench. And it's pretty straightforward for a demo in the web. It's a lot cooler in person when you have like 12 3D printers and you can actually see one of them start doing stuff, but that's not quite what we're here for today. So the cool thing about this was about 2 months later, another one of our development teams, totally separate from that effort, released a predictive analytics plugin. And I was talking to the customer about their 3D printing lab and how incorporating predictive analytics for trying to analyze failures in the future would complement additive manufacturing quite well. And they said, yeah, that would be great. Could we do something like that? And I said, sure. And so all we did was we deployed the predictive analytics dashboard, and I literally add in 2 lines of code to the BeastCore configuration, and I can do a Helm upgrade to give me a new deployment of BeastCore that actually has the fault dashboard in there. And this will take, I don't know, a couple of seconds to process. And we'll see a couple of containers spin up over here. And without getting into the weeds too much of what it's doing, it basically just took the 1 or 2 pieces of BeastCore that are affected by that change and started up a new process and terminates the old ones. And then should be able to come back over there in a second, and we'll have the predictive analytics dashboard right next to our 3D printing module, which is really cool because, again, the 2 teams didn't talk to each other. It's not like we built this application specifically saying, oh yeah, analytics would look really cool if it was next to 3D printing, and there's a lot of synergy there. It's just totally opportunistic. Hey, one team built one thing, one team built another thing, and now they just work together. So, I mean, again, that goes back to Z's point of friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and data aggregation is when the opportunity arises, we could just start gluing stuff together. So again, here's your tech work packages. I can come back over here and see the status of my fabricator, and then I can come over to analytics and start clicking on these and get the fault information for different faults that are popping up. And then when I'm looking at this fault, I could say, hey, what component is this for again? And it selects the component system viewer, and I have all the details right here, which was really cool. And that worked really well. But to get a little bit meta with it, I wanted to show this off in this demo today, but I wanted to show a new version of BeastCore. And so the really cool thing was I was expecting this to be a relatively painful process just because, I mean, again, we've been doing this for 10 years, and this is a new tool we've come out with in the last year. And it's always been a painful process in order to get a new build of the software. But this is now literally as easy as just saying, hey, I would like to update my dependencies. It'll go and pull the latest version of the dependencies, including the latest version of BeastCore. And then in a second, once the old version's tearing itself down, we'll start the new version of BeastCore. And this takes about a minute, but it's really cool because we're jumping about 6 months. So you'll go from like what was this very prototype release candidate version of BeastCore 6. And this will actually be, I think, the first public demo we've done of the new version of BeastCore 6 that was actually fully released. This will be BeastCore 6.7, which the dev team just released last Friday. Really cool that we're on that rolling release cycle. And even cooler is the fact that, again, I was able to take the predictive analytics demo that we glued to the 3D printing demo and just upgrade all of BeastCore around it completely seamlessly. So there's a lot of use cases for that. Some of them are more technical in nature, right? Like if you're a company that wants to integrate with other data sources, this provides a very flexible means of doing it. You no longer have to even know what data sources you're integrating with. You just contribute into the ecosystem, and at deployment time, someone can say, I want that piece and that piece and that piece, go. And you just get a highly flexible deployment environment. It also gives you a very resilient solution that stands the test of time, because I can now come over here and we'll grab a new web page, and I'll come to localhost. And let's see here. Did that? Oh no, I have to come over to this chart. Sorry, I need to grab the latest version of BeastCore. So you know we're doing it live.
Well, that's the cool part, man. Like literally in real time, you're compiling this and showing how easy it is to upgrade. There are a ton of enterprise solutions out there that could take weeks to do an upgrade like this. And so BeastCore from the onset was built to be easily upgraded and customized.
Yep. Yeah, and again, it's just really cool because we have all of these different data providers and visualizations, and the way that they work is they literally provide a visualization in a specific context to the app, but they're not even necessarily dependent on being in that part of the app. So when I pull up the new version of B-Score, you'll see that like we've moved the details pane to another place. There's actually a whole different workflow for even getting to System Viewer. System Viewer renders the data in a different way, and it's all flexible enough that I can just on the fly grab a new version of B-Score, drop it all in there, and it takes about a minute to stand up, but that's not bad for a 6-month upgrade from B-Score November 23 to Beast Code literally last Friday.
And again, with integrations that separate development teams were working on and independently.
Yep. That should be the new one, and we just have to wait for all these containers to hit ready. But the other cool piece of this as well is you can see that these are all broken out into separate services. So we've got a lot of customers who look at this, and we're a lightweight viewer, but they're like, hey, we don't even need that much, but it needs to run on this smaller piece of hardware. We can literally trim out the things that they don't need. Alternatively, we have some customers right now who are in like a minimum viable product state, and they're like, hey, we really want to narrow the scope of what we're looking at to just a couple of pieces that are relevant to us. So I know of one development lab right now that currently sets up with our 3D rendering module. And that's pretty much the only thing they have. And they're just looking at different ways of rendering their data. They contribute different data into the ecosystem. And that's really fun because we kind of get to help them with a lot of those hard pieces, but they're also contributing their own solutions. So every single plugin, every single piece of the architecture has its own API standards that are about to be publicly available. And I already have made them available to our partners. So we have other people contributing different pieces into the ecosystem, and it's cool to watch them upgrade. It's cool to watch how all the pieces come together. And some of the pieces have foresight. We know what they're going to do with them. And other pieces are like, hey, someone did this cool thing. We didn't think anyone was going to do it, but now it just works in the rest of the environment. And a lot of that's enabled by the fact that all of the plugins, again, it's a data aggregation platform. So they don't just talk in arbitrary language. They specifically have to acquire a data point and say, I would like someone to do something with this, which kind of gets everyone on the same page. So here's the new version of B-Score. This looks way more professional, much sleeker. I love what our designers did with the app. It was so cool to just watch the evolution. But again, I can come over here to show haul, grab the cryogenic cooling system and hit load. And you can see on the sidebar, we still have fabricators. We still have analytics. I made 0 lines of code change when I upgraded 7 minor versions of B-Score. I click on show water valve 12. The details pane is not even floating anymore. It has a whole chunk of the application. It now pops up over here dynamically, but hey, here's my plugin that still exists for all my tech data packages that I can scroll through. I can close out of this guy. We can come over to fabricators. My 3D printer is still allegedly chugging away on this wrench, and I can come back over to analytics and view all these faults again. So it's the same data points and the same visualizations, and the same software. We just made a 6-month jump in time with like a Helm dependency pool and a reinstall. So not only, just to wrap all that up, not only is it like a super composable API where we're trying to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and we can bring all sorts of different data sources together and different data visualizations together, but now we have the ability to even just play with those data sources and visualization like Lego pieces. We can build whatever we want to out of it. We can build it on the fly. We can rapidly upgrade it. And that's not just us. That gives us, but it also gives our customers a huge amount of flexibility because it's open standard. So if you guys have a data source that's custom to your company, you could just connect it into the environment, leverage all the existing visualizations we have with your data, and it all just works. And it's really easy to maintain, and it all ends up in the same place. That's all I got.
That was awesome, Mario. Thanks for running through that. Nothing like compiling on the fly at a live event, right, and showing off the results. So I'm going to share my screen again and just go through some of the new features that are coming out in V6. Again, if you got questions and stuff, go ahead and throw them in the chat. And at the end of this, we'll answer them if they don't get answered already through the chat room. This is our roadmap. So at the beginning of the year, we talked about wanting to have a SaaS application. We want people to be able to go to our website, create an account, and get access to B-Score deployed in an AWS cloud environment. We also, for users that don't want to use SaaS, there's still going to be the self-managed version where you'd be able to get all the containers and be able to download those and deploy them into your environment. And for our DoD customers, those same containers will still be available in DoD's Platform One Iron Bank. Arguably, roadmap's not very pretty. A lot of things on there, probably a lot of text that you're going, huh, I have no freaking idea what that is. But we wanted you guys to be a part of the journey with us. We'll be refining this throughout the year and sharing it with you. But we are at the end of Q1, so we just wanted to show some of the things that we've built. First one, Wargo was kind of going over, info panel redesign. So it used to be like you'd fly around in the model, and you saw this in my demo. You click on the component, and a lot of times the info panel would just hide what you're looking at. And you're like, dang, I wanted to look at the 3D and the info. And it was just kind of clunky. So we've moved all of that into integrated into the panel to take maximize the real estate that we have there. But also some of the cool things now are you were just seeing being able to look at documents, and instead of clicking on the hyperlinks and having to zoom into the 3D viewer, you can see information that immediately available on the left. So for customers that don't have these 3D environments readily available, but are still operating well with the PDFs and diagrams and stuff like that, you can still use B-Score, and we can still aggregate your data, and you can take advantage of all the things that we're showing you. Also, as Wario noted, each one of the buttons across the bottom there, the I, the states, connections, and tech manuals, each one of those is a sub plugin. So you can build your own integrations into that panel. Next up is responsive design. So being able to, most apps have this, but for the longest time you would launch B-Score. You probably had version 4 of it, and it would have this screen that was like, something's not right. You're using a resolution that we don't support, which was most resolutions. So now it's all responsive. It'll work on any device, tablets, mobile devices, anywhere that's using Chrome. But by chance, it does work on most of the other platforms as well. I can pull up B-Score on Safari on my iPhone. It works just as well. By the end of the year, we will have cross-browser support. So we will be going through and making sure all the major browsers are supported. Saving and loading scenes. So this goes back to that use case of like, hey, can you find that valve for me? And so this would typically be like over the phone, and we're kind of guiding them through where it is. We can now do that in the viewer. Find the valve, click on it, save it, send it to a user, and they can load it up. And it'll load up the same geometry, put the camera where mine was, select the component, and show the data. And then modeling tools, a lot of use cases around like, that's cool that I can load these things really fast, but I really want to move them around. Maybe it's a piece of equipment or a part that's like embedded into an aircraft, and it's like, I kind of want to pull it out. I want to see how I can pull it out. And maybe I have this model of a new part, and I want to be able to load that into the viewer. So you can do that now, bring in your own models that aren't a part of the package that's already there. And move it around and see if you can actually do the form fit factor use case of it. So you can bring them in, move them around, rotate them, scale them, and it works with any of the different components. And just some of the upcoming features, right? We showed the roadmap, a lot of things on there. Got 3 things on here, but there's 4 that we're really excited about. The first one is the B-Score editing tools. Most people see this demo and they go, heck yeah, like how do I get my data in here? And it's usually like this weird, well, you kind of need to send it to us. So we got our own internal tools, we can process it for you and we'll deploy it. And that just doesn't work for SaaS. And that just, as things are becoming more digital across industry, it just doesn't work for people. So all those internal tools are all being converted into the web. It'll be an app that's on the left side of B-Score where you can go through and upload geometry, upload documents, upload metadata, and do all the same things we can in a user-friendly interface. User and license management. Don't really need to talk about that one too much, but there are some cool kind of things that would go along with that. And just imagine that use case of, hey, I'm going to save out the location of that valve and send you the file. If we're in the same organization, there's no reason I couldn't just like share that with you, not have to send it to you through email or something. It just pops up in that user's environment. Search improvements, kind of talked about this, but in earlier versions, it's a query builder. There's a lot of steps in there. People just want to Google search stuff. I just want to type in valve X and you give me a list of all the things that are there and be able to filter it down. So we're working through that as well. And with that, like we really want to drive queries like across B-score. So being able to like once I've refined what my search is, maybe I have real-time data coming into B-score. And it's something that I want to be able to run on a daily basis. And it's a report or a dashboard that I'm looking at. But I also want to be able to render those things. So we have this idea of like systems. We showed you the platform selector where I loaded in the mechanical and electrical different systems. Those are all pre-configured. And we imagine there's still going to be those pre-configured systems, but why not be able to use search and create those queries yourself and then go render those things, be able to change opacity, colors, and make your own visualizations off of it. So those are some of the features that are coming. Also, just a ton of performance improvements as well, especially on the rendering side. We have customers that have a network speed of like 10 megabits. So it's really hard to download all this CAD geometry in that type of environment. So we're making some enhancements to make things smaller and to have more performance when you're actually rendering in the client viewer. Over to you, Jake.
All right. So as we're on the topic of exciting new things and the future, just want to highlight some of the out-of-the-box partners or integrations, excuse me, and partners that exist today. So first and foremost, in the middle, we got AWS. They have been a phenomenal partner, foundational in helping us mature our overall application, helping us define and redefine towards a SaaS offering. And then helping in terms of joint overall engagement across the commercial and defense sector. So, of course, best in class cloud services and subsequently edge computing. On the right here, we have Pixie, best in class of predictive maintenance and much, much more. On the left, we have Siemens. Need I say more? But as we talk about NX, as we talk about Teamcenter, these are integrations that exist and are just growing in terms of features and functionalities to this day. And then Defense Unicorns, a stable partner that provides best-in-class AI LLM tools that we have integrations with. And these are just some of the examples of the integrations we have today. There's a lot more that are available to you, not only as a potential customer or as a customer, but then also as a partner having access to that ecosystem.
Yeah, and like Wargo was saying, he calls it emergence. So like with these plugins, there's like all kinds of cool things that happen. So we're talking about like we have our app hosted in AWS and we can connect with things like a Siemens Teamcenter. And suddenly you have this like lightweight version of Teamcenter to access your data with. But then you have like some of the cool things we're doing with Defense Unicorns with like large language models where you have like this chat GPT kind of search capability in B-Score. And you like bring those things together and like suddenly you have this like chat GPT version of like Teamcenter, which may not have ever have happened together with those individual products. So bringing those things together and then bringing things like same kind of use case with like Pixie and the predictive maintenance stuff that we're doing there. Having them do the AI kind of analysis of trends and determining when things are going to have faults. And then all that data is stored in B-Score to be able to say, this is the model and the location of the thing that's going to break. Here's all the part numbers of stuff that you need to order. Here's the tech manuals to do the maintenance. And maybe there's even training courses embedded that show you how to actually do it. So like all these things together, like I say they're Lego blocks, but you can build some really unique kind of combos.
All right. And then I get the pleasure of talking about becoming a beast. So engaging with us and subsequently becoming a partner, joining our partner network, the first bullet speaks to, again, early access or some of the benefits of joining our partner network. So early access to B-Score releases, the latest and greatest, full transparency in terms of roadmaps, releases, integrations, documentation, and again, building that trust. Joining our best-in-class partner network. So we don't do this alone. We know what we do and what we do well. And then within our partner network, we have others that are experts in their field. So when you join our partner network, you have access to all those other companies, their capabilities and their technology as we collaborate together and solve hard problems. And then lastly, world-class subject matter expertise. As that pertains to Beast Code and as that pertains to others within our network, we're all specialists in what we do, and we love to share and to collaborate. So we love to work together and to grow together to help guide our customers and yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake. We're going to move into our Q&A, see what kind of questions you guys have. One of them from Benjamin Cooper, I'll throw it up here. What's the most exciting project on the current roadmap? We'll kind of just round robin it. I can kick it off, like talking about that idea of like the visual kind of queries that are coming out of that. I think that's going to open up a lot of different kind of opportunities, really. Like, and combined with like the user management stuff. I mean, it may sound really lame, but being able to search for something and create that report and then visually render those things and then being able to like share it with Wargo. So it just pops up in his almost like a shared kind of document. I just think there's a lot we can do there. What about everybody else on the line? What are you guys looking forward to?
I definitely think that's a big one. One of the other big pieces that I'm looking forward to as well, and this is kind of cheating because it's halfway here, but it's going to be refined over the coming years, is how we aggregate data from multiple platforms. So like the demo we've shown you guys was, hey, I have some offline data over here and I can pull it into BeastCore and I can show you guys because that's how you do like a public release offline demo. But we have some environments where we tie into other systems, and typically right now we're not mixing them a ton. Typically it's like, I'm going to pull like PLM data from this system and geometry from that system and CAD, but I've got documents over here and I've got predictive analytics over there. And BeastCore has a lot of value in that we can bring those disparate data silos together and kind of show you the things next to each other that wouldn't be next to each other. But another really cool thing that we've got, and this is more on the back end, so I'm trying not to get super technical with it, but we have the concept of this aggregator where we could take multiple of the same data source and say, hey, I have some of my documents over here and some of them over there and some of them in this third place. And then like bring them together and deconflict them and show you like, hey, you have the authoritative drawing came from here, but you have a red line that came from there, but they're both still smart documents that are both still cross-referenced to Siemens. And then kind of like Matt alluded to earlier, that's where you start getting those emergent properties where you have visualizations that no one ever thought about putting together that are suddenly playing with data that no one ever thought about putting together. And the result is bigger than just the sum of their pieces. So, like you said, we've partnered with Defense Unicorns for bringing large language models into the application. And so if that LLM isn't just based on a single data set, but suddenly it's based on the aggregation of all of those data sets, you'll start finding some really interesting things. And then if that search plugin can just be put in front of System Viewer, well, now suddenly you have a natural language like, hey, I'd like to see all of the pumps that are related to cooling on this platform. And you're actually using an LLM to sift through multiple data sources to get those answers. Then those answers are rendered for you in 3D. I just think there's a huge amount of value that we're going to discover as we start doing more of that live aggregation piece of not just aggregation of disparate data, but aggregation of the same types of data from different sources. So I think that's the part I'm really looking forward to.
Jake and John, you guys want to hop in on that?
Yeah. It's not on the SaaS roadmap specifically, but I know we're working towards the functionality of being able to leverage what we're calling nesting doll models. Basically, if you think about the Russian nesting dolls, the ability to have multiple stacked inside of one another and just across our DoD customer base and beyond, there really is no large system today that is built from the nuts and bolts to the full scale system by one company. It really is an integration of efforts across multiple vendors, but everyone has their data they're trying to protect, and so the ability to pull data together into one place while still managing to protect that IP across companies is going to be hugely beneficial, as well as just improving the user experience at the same time, because you don't run into as many issues anymore of, oh, I can't do that because such and such company won't let us pull it into the same place due to fear of that. So that, I mean, that's just one of the use cases for nesting doll approaches. It also just helps you build different levels of fidelity across a large platform as well, such that like in our Never Sleep spaceship, maybe I need full fidelity detail of one specific subsystem, and that can enable me to do that while keeping the entirety of the system as a whole at a more lightweight level, such that I can lightly interact with it everywhere. So that's probably what I'm most excited about. But I mean, in terms of SaaS, I'm just really excited for users to be more able to edit and build their own stuff. I mean, we're doing a lot of work with the Air Force and Space Force where we're having even active duty coders going in and building their own plugins to the capability. And I think that as we see more of that and mature that capability within Beast Core, that's going to just unlock a lot of capability for our end users.
All right. It's hard to pick a favorite project, but overall, same concept or along the lines of what Wargo was saying, except in the context of working with partners. So defining business and use cases, extending or utilizing our UI and UX to extend the features and functionalities, ultimately, and learn internally and ultimately to our customer base and partners. So super excited about that.
Yeah, and I think like, oh, go ahead, Wario.
I was just going to say, I'll piggyback off of what Jake was saying too. I think one of the coolest things that we've seen happen in like even just the last 6 months is we have our traditional end customers who we like build digital twins for and do data aggregation for. But it's also been really cool to work with a lot of small companies and like help increase their value proposition. So like instead of just saying, hey, we have this one visualization for this one type of data and you can go to it on our website. Well, we've been able to work with a number of those people and say, hey, you can contribute like a heat map into Beast Core. You can contribute, some details pane or some data that's raw or whatever you have. And it's cross-referenced back to your website. We're not trying to replace your website and try to, do any of that. We're just trying to show the high-level effects in the context of everything else, where suddenly a user can use your product next to all of these other tools. And when they want to drill down into the details, it opens up their product. And it's been really cool to work with a number of other small businesses and research labs and enable them to very quickly build things that would otherwise be outside of the scope of, their normal operations. That's been a really fulfilling part of the new architecture just in the last 6 months.
And I'm really just stealing this from Wario because these are his words, but he talks about the impact that the SaaS solution is going to have. Like, we have 230 people plus at Beast Code, so there's only so much we can do. We can focus on creating this technology, and then we're partners with Amentum. They have like 50,000 employees. Like, how much more can they do using our software and implementing across the DoD, across the commercial industry, and across the world? So it really is just a matter of us focusing on technology, getting it in people's hands, doing the partnerships to bring these other technologies and organizations together and making that impact across the world. Are there any other questions that you guys have in the chat? Can wait a minute and see if we get anything else. All right, I'm just kidding. We're not going to wait a minute. Really appreciate everybody taking the time to come listen to us. A lot of going through the list of people that were attending today. Ton of familiar faces that were coming to the live event. As I mentioned with the origin story, a lot of you guys were a part of that. So really just wanted to thank you guys for all of your support over the years, almost a decade now in June. And then there were a ton of new faces. We just wanted to welcome you guys into the Beast Code family. And again, just really appreciate everyone's time and support, and we'll see you soon. See you later, guys.